Hi, I'm Lynn Rand, and I am board chair at the Interfaith Community Shelter.
And I'm Natasha Katko, the shelter's volunteer committee chair. This evening, we want to remind our supporters about the amazing work being done at the Interfaith Community Shelter.
As many of you know, Joe Jordan-Berenis, our beloved executive director of 7 years, passed away suddenly on October 3rd. We're pleased to dedicate this evening to his memory, that of an inspired leader, a gentleman, and one of this world's truly good human beings.
Joe exemplified the compassion, loving kindness that we at the Interfaith Community Shelter strive to achieve. Throughout the entire organization, his passion was helping people whom the rest of society tend to shun. The entire Santa Fe community of public servants who are dedicated to serving people who are homeless are heartbroken to have lost Joe.
One thing about Joe is he was all about the mission. And in fact, for him, it was really more of a calling than a mission. He was also a humble human being and was always embarrassed when he received praise, as richly deserved as it was. On the other hand, he was always happy to talk about our guests, about the shelter, and about the mission. In his honor, we will continue his mission and continue to serve those in need.
The Interfaith Community Shelter is often the first point of contact for someone that has fallen victim to homelessness, and is one place where someone who is living on the streets will get a word of compassionate care from people who truly want to help them.
Later in the video, you'll hear from some of our original founders and about the then and current mission of the shelter, preventing people experiencing homelessness from freezing to death on the streets of Santa Fe during our harsh winters. At the same time, then Mayor David Koss had a vision of a one-stop shop for services for these people: healthcare, legal services, and housing.
I am honored to report that the shelter has succeeded in both areas. We have done what we were created to do: prevent tragedy of multiple deaths from hypothermia. Likewise, shelter management has forged powerful relationships and partnerships with providers of homeless services in Santa Fe. We are all devoted to ending chronic homelessness and putting ourselves out of business, but we're not quite there yet.
We could not perform our mission of serving the most vulnerable people in our community without you, our donors and supporters. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We also thank our volunteers, our community partners, supporting businesses, and the 4 chefs who have made tonight's program and the food you're about to enjoy possible. And Joe, we miss you. Hope we don't embarrass you by praising you, and hope you enjoy tonight's presentation. Thank you.
I want to say thank you for coming. Enjoy the rest of the program and stay well. Vaye con Dios.
Good evening. Throughout this video presentation, you will have a chance to hear from 4 people who over a decade ago, along with many others from a wide variety of faith groups, saw a problem in Santa Fe and came together to do something about it. That problem was that individuals experiencing homelessness were freezing to death on the streets of Santa Fe. I would like to thank in advance Rabbi Marvin Schwab, Guy Gronquist, Suzanne Breslauer, and Marianne Lundy, who graciously offered their time to share some of their memories of the news and events that were happening in Santa Fe that led to the creation of the Interfaith Community Shelter at Pete's Place. Thank you so much.
How did the city come together and what were the conditions when this really started in terms of the shelter? And for one thing, other faith groups were doing things, but we were all somewhat disconnected. Right. And what brought us together was really the founding of the Interfaith Leadership Alliance, which came about because somebody ragged on me about, isn't there some way that you can put a notice out to all the other faith groups? And there wasn't. We got together and if you feed them, they will come. And we started we did a lunch at the temple and got the faith leaders together and formed the Interfaith Leadership Alliance. And out of that was the idea that one faith community could not do this on their own. And we needed to come together to deal with issues in Santa Fe. And at that time, there were probably, the figure that I've heard is 30 people a year dying of exposure in the winter.
Well, I think these faith communities came together from different strands because of what Rabbi Schwab said right at the outset, a common belief in the dignity and the sacredness of human life and our obligation to each other, which we not only developed a sense of community with our homeless brothers and sisters, but with each other. We came to understand that homeless people are very much like we are, except they don't have a roof over their head.
So the ingredients in this dish are pretty fun to play with. Braised meats are beautiful to make sliders with. You can actually stretch it out to nachos. What I used was short rib. The good thing is this is about a 10 to 12 hour cook time, slow and low. So you're looking at about 200 degrees for 10 to 12 hours. This is gonna be about a 2-day process to let you know. So 1 day to cook, 1 day to prep when we make this dish. I just used some beef stock, which I have right here. Little salt, pepper, garlic powder, because at the end of the day I want to play with it with the barbecue sauce that I created. So this is liquid smoke, a little bit of honey, brown sugar, tomato sauce, tomato puree, a little bit of ketchup. I played with it. Our slider is also going to have a nice little carrot and cabbage slaw on it. The slaw sauce that I made, this dressing as I like to call it, this is equal parts sour cream and heavy duty mayo mixed with salt, pepper, and a little cayenne pepper for some heat. Some nice pickle chips. We're gonna get a little crunch between the slaw and the pickles. Sharp white cheddar cheese for a little bite. We're gonna get a little gooiness as the sauce comes together. It's gonna come together beautiful, guys. So I started some butter going on. Get a little heat to it. I'm gonna hit it with a little olive oil. So these are our slider buns, and we're gonna put them all in there. Sandwich side down. And then while that's going on, I'm gonna get my second pan going. So a little butter in there, because everyone likes fat. This is some of the juice that I braised the short ribs in, because I still want that marrow flavor. And here's our beautiful short rib that I pulled off the bone and it fell right apart. A little more juice. And as I said, check my buns so I don't burn them. Ah, beautiful. See that color? That's what we're looking for right there. Give it a little seasoning. This is garlic powder. A little salt, kosher. A little cracked black pepper. And it's funny, when you're not in your kitchen, you forget where you put stuff sometimes. Get a little twirl, a little flipperoonie. A little more sauce. Some of the semi-magic. This is our house-made barbecue sauce. We don't want to drown it in there because we're actually going to throw some cheese in there too to get a little more gooiness. I love that word, gooiness, but that's the concept. Get our heat down a little bit because now we're ready to go. We just got to heat this up. This is our shaved or grated sharp white cheddar. Get it in there. And the reason I do it this way instead of just putting it on top is I want it all to mold together. So you're going to get the beef, you're going to get the cheese, you're going to get the slaw and the pickle all in one bite. And it's going to be a nice, beautiful product at the end. I still want a little more barbecue sauce in there because it's not barbecue if it doesn't have sauce in it. And as you can see, our cheese is getting nice and gooey in there. So that's our finished product that's going to go on our bun. Turn that down real quick. Next, because we need some crunchiness on it, this is our carrot and cabbage slaw. This is our slaw dressing we're going to toss in there. So let's plate these sliders and have them look beautiful. And the best thing about this is about a 3-bite sandwich, so you don't have to put that much on. I like to call this the Jedi mind trick. Make it look bigger than it is. So these are our pickle chips. I'm gonna give a little bite. Our nice spicy slaw. Give it a little push down with our top toasted bun top. And to make it look pretty and not fall apart when our servers bring it out, I like these little bamboo skewers. Voila, everybody. Our short rib barbecue braised sliders. 3 ready to go. Are you guys ready to dig in? Because I'm starving.
My name is Ellen Zieselman. I'm a congregant at Temple Beth Shalom here in Santa Fe. I enjoy volunteering at the Interfaith Shelter, but more importantly, I donate monthly in a recurring basis. I support the shelter and have enjoyed my time volunteering and interacting with the people who make use of the shelter. The biggest draw for me is the philosophy that the shelter has, that the people who come to the shelter are treated as guests and family members.
We're doing stuffed mushrooms as a garnish with our vegan mushroom soup. One of the important parts is that we marinate our mushrooms first. So I take nice big white mushrooms, take off our stem, and reserve our caps. So tamari soy. This is our homemade broth. A little bit of white wine. And a little bit of oil. And what we do is I got to give this no more than 5 minutes because the saltiness from the soy will be too strong. So a very quick marinade, and then we put it on the tray and we cook it in the juices and stick it right in the oven. So I turn them face down onto the pan, and we reserve our liquid right into our convection. That's at 400, and I'm going to set it for about 12 minutes because they're nice dense mushrooms, and checking at that point. They should be close to ready by then. I'm going to cut these gluten-free bread slices into croutons, put them in my blender, add a few things to them, and then we have gluten-free breadcrumbs for our stuffing. Just a rough cut to get them into the machine. I like to flavor them up, spice them up a little bit, mix the salt and pepper, some Italian peppers, thyme, which gives it that Thanksgiving-y flavor, and parsley. If you have a little oregano, that's a pinch of that's great. I put them in my blender, probably about 30 seconds or so, pulsing. And there's some gluten-free breadcrumbs for our mushroom stuffing. Put some garlic in a bowl, so I just want to season it up a little bit. I'm going to use the similar seasonings that I use for my stuffing. Salt and pepper, thyme, oregano, parsley, and a little Italian peppers. Add a little olive oil. And I'll basically just toss them up a little bit. Put them inside my foil, wrap them up, make a little boat. And we're going to put those in the oven, same temperature. But what I want to do is periodically stir it so it sort of browns up real nice. And at the end, you're going to have something that looks sort of like that. And that's going to go into our stuffing as well. So now to stuff the mushrooms, these are our cooked mushroom caps. And I just do a quick stuffing. You don't want to make them mounded up too high. And I'm going to take some of our reserved liquid from cooking the mushrooms. And that'll really top it off. I'll tell you, I'm about to take the mushrooms out, but I have mushroom soup ready. And I want to show you the way I really season it up at the end is I put a little bit of the reserved liquid from our cooked mushrooms. Put them in a bowl. A little parsley. We're ready to go. I'm going to take out our shrooms. So we're going to plate our mushrooms. The liquid's pretty much cooked down. I'm going to use a little bit of our cashew sauce for dipping. And there you go. Enjoy.
Newspaper stories were so horrendous for us. That is, most of us would have had no knowledge of the deaths, those who were being carted off to the hospital. And so we were just, I speak for myself, shocked that this was happening in this small community. And I'm sure if the New Mexican hadn't reported on that, I would not have known about it. And I really think our shock is what moved us, especially to move as fast as we did.
When we first started, we really did depend upon the faith communities to supply the volunteers. And it was amazing how many people volunteered. Faith was not an issue. It was just a feeling that we needed to do something about this very underserved and neglected part of our population. And people were more than willing to cook, to supervise the showers, to do shopping, to do whatever. And I think in many ways, until we ran into the COVID situation, getting volunteers has never been a problem. I think because now that there actually is a place, Pete's Place, because there are more people, that the volunteers come from all over in the community.
My name is Dora Horn. My husband Van and I have been involved with the Interfaith Community Shelter since the very beginning in an office building on St. Michael's. We give of our time and talent because we consider this a legacy gift. And it's been an adventure the entire way. We've met marvelous friends along the way. And we joined so many other volunteers who have a heart for the homeless. So we just encourage everyone to join us in giving to the Interfaith Community Shelter.
So this dish is called tagine. It's a chicken tagine. The reason why it's called tagine is because it's made usually in a clay pot and over a fire, and that's like a classic dish of that part of Morocco and Algeria. I'm going to take you through just like these little spices that I have here. I have coriander. They are seeded. I toss them to get a little flavor and then ground them. Then I have cumin, red chili, turmeric, thyme, cinnamon, and nutmeg. You can do it with meat, you can do it with chicken, with anything. The whole thing is the same. But today we're going to do it with chicken. I have a chicken leg and a thigh together that I roasted earlier. But just to show you how you're roasting, usually you're roasting at semi-hot oil, and you always start with the skin side down. And then I have tomatoes that I cut in wedges. And then for the carrots also I cut in length like this, not diced small. And then I have also cauliflower, which is a huge vegetable in that part of the world. And since this has already been roasted before, so it will take just a little time just to show you pretty much. There is no time on the roasting. What there is you usually look at by the color. If it's nice and brown, that means it's perfectly roasted. So after you cook these separately, you move them to another plate. And then a generous 1 spoon of garlic. Not to burn the garlic, it's very easy to do, and burnt garlic is not very good. It's very bitter. So now we're going to start putting our spices. The cinnamon, the coriander, the cumin, the red chili, turmeric, which is a huge, as it is in India, but the Berbers also use turmeric a lot in their cuisine. And then the fresh thyme. Okay. So I'm just gonna make it a little bit, cook it so it mixes well with the oil. Okay, and then we put back our meat and vegetables. Okay, and I have here a chicken stock. It's made with bones, the chicken bones. Okay, so you reduce it. If you start with a cup, you will end up with 1/3 of a cup. So you need to have all that water evaporates, so that way the flavor concentrate and enters both the meat and the vegetables. The whole thing will take maybe 30 minutes, just roasting the vegetables separately and then mix them up with everything. And then we have salt and pepper. Unfortunately, you cannot go without it. And then I have some olives. And then some tomatoes, some green onion, just to finish. We are not going to cook it too long because we already cooked the vegetable and the meat earlier. Now, you can do it at high temperature, it's okay. Usually when you braise things, you do it at low temperature, but for this dish, it's just, we want to have all the spices together. I just put some salt and then black pepper, and now we're good to go. This is the dish, and now we're gonna plate it, and we're gonna do this, and then the carrots on the side, and then you have the beautiful cauliflower. And now we're gonna put the sauce. No need to sauce it's nice to sauce it in the bottom like this rather than put it all on top. So that way the color stays, of the vegetable and all, it stays the same. We're gonna do a little bit of green onion and then cilantro. Voila.
Hi, my name is Tom Ortiz, a former board member and board chair for 1 year. I started volunteering when the interior of Pete's Place was still a pet store. Along with many volunteers, we completely renovated the entire interior. Along with my wife and 3 other volunteer women, we served twice monthly on an evening court team for 9 years. In addition to my volunteer time, I've been a monthly donor since I became associated with this amazing organization. I am constantly amazed with the generosity of donors. It is important to me to support the work of this shelter. Thank you for being our guests, and we appreciate your continued support.
Today I'll be cooking for you this nice piece of swordfish that I seasoned with our chama seasoning, which is like salt, pepper, has some garlic, some paprika, really nice. What I have here is a hot saute pan with a little bit of oil in it, where I'm going to start off the sear. So this one we want to start off the sear pretty well. You see how it's edging up there. I'm gonna flip that over, see how we have enough sear. This kind of fish we want to cook all the way through. I'm gonna take out some of that oil. So we'll add butter, and we'll add the thyme, a little bit of garlic, and the bay leaf. Butter makes everything better. So we're just gonna baste it. It also evens it, but also adds really good flavor. Give it a little flip, and nice and golden brown. We'll baste this side. Get some of this thyme on there. When you know it's done, it starts to firm up. It gets a little firm. Instead of, it still feels a little soft when it's raw. And there we go. So I'll take it out, and then I'll just put it in the oven for about 2 minutes. She finishes it up. So I'm just gonna get this, I'm gonna put it right on the plate with a piece of lemon, and then give it some fresh herbs as well.
My name is Sally Bingham. I'm speaking to you today as a volunteer and a contributor to the Interfaith Community Shelter, often known as Pete's Place. I started to become interested in the shelter when I began cooking meals with my church, Holy Faith, and came to know the quality of the service there, not just the food, but the fact that the people who come there to eat are actually treated as guests, not as homeless people. This was very moving to me, particularly because my son Will, who died 4 years ago, never benefited from the shelter because he was not courageous enough to go there. So the fact that the shelter saves the lives of people who would freeze to death, the way my son froze to death, if they didn't have the possibility of going to the shelter. I am deeply grateful for the leadership of Joe, and I feel that my contribution should go in memory of him, and perhaps some of you will want to contribute in memory of his service. Thank you.
You know, it strikes me, how often in your life are you able to say, I saved a human life, right? And the shelter and the efforts of everybody give us all collectively that ability to say, my existence was not wasted because I was able to bring a little kindness, a little warmth in the winter, a little light into the world, and I helped to save some human lives. And that's the thing that I think most stands out, and it gives us all a sense of gratitude. When I was a child, I never understood the expression, it's better to give than to receive. But boy, do I understand that now. How lucky we are, how blessed, how fortunate that we're not the ones at the shelter receiving, but we're the ones giving. And what a privilege that is.